we would like to hear how you, our listeners, who may be polyamorous or maybe kinky, are spending holiday time with your chosen families. So we would like to have you call in and tell us about it. We have a number set up.
It's my personal cell phone.
It is not Max's personal
Max.
cell phone. So we have a number set up so you can call and leave us a message. Before I give you the number, I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. You're going to call, you're going to give us your name, you're going to tell us where you are, and then you're going to tell us that you consent for us to use your phone message, and then you're going to tell us about how you're spending time with your chosen family. Either
What you're wearing.
No, not what you're wearing. Either your polyamorous polycule or pod, whatever you refer to yourself as, or your multiple partners, or if you're single, like how you're dealing with that, or you're, if you're solo poly, like maybe you see different partners, or maybe you choose not to see partners for the holidays. Maybe you don't celebrate any holidays. Doesn't matter what holidays you celebrate. Doesn't matter when. So our number is 1-804-404-3577. One more time, that's 1-804-404-3577. It is not a 1-800 number. If you call 1-800, we don't know who you're going to get, but you can tell them about stuff too. So call that number, leave us a message. We are going to take recordings up to and including January 1st, 2020, so that we can find out all about your New Year's plans too. And you can tell us about your future plans or your past plans, just anything you'd like to share with us about your polyam holidays or your kink fam holidays.
And send nudes.
Howdy.
Hey.
How's everybody been?
Since the last one?
Uh-huh.
There's been major developments.
What developments?
I had a piece of flatbread.
Was it good?
It was.
Good.
It's also garlicky.
It was very garlicky. I had to go
because I
brush my
minced it.
teeth. You did. You minced the garlic so well.
Precisely.
Precisely. Precise Brian.
What else is new with Precise Brian?
I heard you found some good plantain chips.
That's like the worst late night talk show. Like,
Yeah, really.
lead into a story. So I heard you've been eating a lot of plantain chips lately.
Yeah, they were in the hippie aisle at Kroger.
Is that where you get your kale chips?
Yeah, they were right next to the kale chips.
So,
Actually, they were one shelf lower, I think.
Are they alphabetized? Were they
No.
below the... Cool.
so what brand of kale chips do you
I don't
enjoy?
know.
If you ran out of kale chips, could you use our affiliate, Instacart, to get
Probably.
new kale chips?
If they have them in stock.
Delivered with a promo code. Stinkcast.
We don't have a promo code. We have a
Oh.
link in our show notes. Thank you very much.
Click on the microphone and enter stinkcast.
Nope, that is not how it works. Please go to our show notes. Click on the link that is very easily
If you
found.
see a microphone anywhere.
Don't click on it.
Okay.
It's a
It'll
trick.
start recording you.
It's a trick.
It's a trap. Do it.
And then get free
I
delivery of groceries.
don't do Akbar on command.
Oh,
He's not your trick pony.
what do you do on command?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Please provide me with a menu.
Inquiring Dominas would like to know.
I don't know.
Is indecisive on command.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking Aries.
Read us in.
Oh, ha!
See, he does that on command like
Yes.
a little cuck.
We do not use that type of language on this show, sir. We are very liberal.
It's just a stupid fucking usage of a term anyway.
Do you need to look at it that way so that you're not...
Backlit, yeah.
Yeah.
Stop, he told us he was going to be real dry and serious about this.
Welcome to the Pod Pod Cvlt Cast, where we talk about life, love, learning, and libido. and share our journey through polyamory and kink. I am Erik.
I'm Chastain.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Max. I don't know if that was dry. It was kind of sultry.
Who was?
I mean, I'm not dry.
The night was sultry.
That was my slowed down radio announcer voice.
I have a correction.
What's your correction?
I have a correction from a previous episode
Oh.
when we were talking about it becoming a problem with millennials in positions of power that they have nudes floating out there in public now.
Was this from episode, oh gosh,
From episode Katie Hill.
18, Katie Hill?
I don't know if that was the number, but yes, this is from when we talked about Katie Hill.
The sad story of Katie Hill.
And
yes.
I said that I kind of floundered on whether I had received nudes from baby boomers. A friend of the pod, in both sense of pod, texted me to let me know that I have definitely received nudes from a baby boomer.
Right
And
on.
you said back, okay, boomer.
Oh.
And like the more I thought about it that day, probably in the old chat room days, I probably received like
Many?
a nude from a silent generation.
Whoa.
The generation
Wow.
before the boomers.
I think back in the old days, I'm pretty sure we had sexual encounters with the silent generation. Yeah.
You weren't real sure
Definitely the
because
way I
they
do
were
it, we did.
loud enough? I don't know.
Silent encounters with the silent generation.
I had
I missed
That's
the
why they're
silent
all-
I
encounter
had,
section of Craigslist.
I had casual encounters of the third kind with the silent generation.
I was never clear on what the second kind was.
This is an actual thing. The first kind is seeing the second, like seeing a spaceship, I think. The second kind, I think I should look this up, is seeing an actual being. And the third
Okay.
kind is actually
Is
making
fucking.
is actually like making contact. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, fucking contact.
Fucking
When I was in
contact.
elementary school and the paranormal bookshelf in the library was right by the back door, man, I read every motherfucker on that shelf.
Yeah.
dude.
It's what kept you from skipping
I'm
school.
surprised because you listen to the Boogie Monster like a lot. Like
Yeah,
I'm
they
surprised you
talk
don't know
about
this.
the second kind, though. That's never been mentioned.
I'm surprised they don't talk about the third kind because they seem like the type of guys who would like go like just like take their penises out and just go boop.
What?
What?
Huh. Hey, do you want to make a weed joke? Because we keep using the word kind. Does anybody want to? No?
What?
Okay.
I mean,
Is there a what?
I like kind buds, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Good. Now that that's covered, we're set. 420. It's
Oh, we can add that to the list of things he does on command. Make a weed pun.
It wasn't
was barely
much
a
of a
pun.
pun and really wasn't.
As
much
our
of a
local weed guy, which I mean, honestly,
Hey,
he's
whoa,
not our
whoa.
weed
I
guy.
am not your local weed guy.
See, that's the thing. You're not because it's not like you're providing us with weed, and you don't make weed jokes. You just you're not even like a political like proponent of like weed legalization or decriminalization. You're just like
pretty aggressive with. What are you doing?
I'm
We're
just
really minimizing his weed content.
yeah. Well, I'm just saying like I think he minimizes his weed content. So I have questions.
It's because it's still illegal.
Nobody knows who you are.
You're right. I don't either.
Man, that's for a different
Wow,
time.
I think wow. I'm sorry. Are you? I'm sorry.
Hey, what were your questions,
Moving on.
Chastain?
Oh, I had questions.
You said
You
you did.
just
Oh.
said I have questions.
Oh, I have questions. So while we're talking about Erik and the fact that he's having an existential crisis, he saw, you saw Wait, Don't Tell Me live, right?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Can you tell us like what you saw and who was there? And
NPR people were there. Yeah, there were NPR people there.
what NPR people?
Like,
Paula Poundstone.
no,
No, Paula
She
Poundstone
wasn't on
wasn't.
it?
no Paula Poundstone.
That
I was
makes me
actually
sad.
A little upset about that. But
I have a
Tom
question.
Bodett was there.
I like Tom Bodett.
I do like Tom Bodett, and made me happy that he was there, and I could kind of see what he looked like, and it's not what I expected.
What does he look like?
Well, I mean,
You could probably
about
Google
what
that.
you would expect.
Which is what? Like I don't have a visual in my mind.
You could probably Google that.
Yeah,
I
you
don't
can.
want to. I want descriptions from Erik. God damn it.
Well, tough shit.
Fuck.
So Lauren and I went to a restaurant like 2 blocks away that night, and we got there 30 minutes before Wait started, and the joint was packed.
Oh yeah, it was really, really surreal being on the street before the show. And actually, I could probably talk about that a lot more than the show itself, because I was waiting for everyone else to show up and meet them, and every single stereotype that you can think of for an NPR person
Right.
was walking down Main Street.
Right, that's what I was thinking. This place was packed with people who clearly have, pledged to our local affiliate.
Yeah, they drive Volvos and carry tote bags.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, today, the Volvo thing's kind of slipped by the wayside. They all drive Subarus now. Which
You're
makes
one
me
of
one
them.
of them.
One of us. One of us.
Yeah,
Who was their guest?
Tim Kaine.
What did he do?
He played harmonica.
And what did he play on harmonica?
He played This Land Is Your Land.
This
And
land
had a
is my land?
Sing-a-lang.
Sing-a-lang?
Land is our
Sing-a-lang.
land.
Sing-a-lang.
A
Yeah,
sing-along?
Yeah, that too.
there was something about his Appalachian Trail nickname. Do you
Oh,
remember
yeah.
this? I don't understand why one has an Appalachian
I don't know.
Trail
Apparently,
nickname,
this
but-
is when you're a through hiker on the Appalachian Trail, and you're amongst
Oh.
other through hikers. You get a single term nickname.
What is his nickname?
It was like Dog Bowl.
Yep,
or
that's what it
something
was.
like that.
Dog Bowl. Yeah, that's what I heard on the NPR Politics podcast.
Why is it
'Cause I am
Dog Bowl?
Also,
They
they
didn't
say.
go into that.
His Secret Service nickname when he was running for vice president was Dogwood. So there's because he's from
'cause
Virginia.
He's actually
Well, he's not from Virginia, right?
He's just representing.
I said because Virginia, not
Right.
from.
No, I said it. I said from Virginia. We met Tim Kaine when you sang at the governor's mansion
Yes,
for
I
Christmas.
did. Yes, I did.
And he was still the governor of Virginia. I asked him if he was running for senator, and he said, "Well, we'll see what happens."
And he did.
And of
And
course
he's been
did.
a senator ever since.
Yep. But
I have a
I
question.
voted for him for mayor. I voted for him for governor. I voted for him for senator.
Me
I'm
too.
happy to continue voting for Tim Kaine. Oh, I voted for him for vice president.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I was just trying to find a trail name generator. Carry on.
Oh.
Apparently, I can use Ginger Dreamer Sea Cat.
Too
That's
many
a
words.
long name.
It is
Hannah is much shorter than that.
much shorter, but you're supposed to have a nickname.
Can I give you a trail name?
Yes, you can name yourself, or someone else can name you. So, do you have one that's better than?
I have one that's ready for
Okay.
you.
Mix.
Trail mix.
No.
See, that's the joke.
Oh,
Granola girl.
okay.
You make your own granola.
I do make my own granola. It's
She's
good.
a woman. Thank you.
Granola woman.
That
She
just
had-
sounds like a terrible
But she's
superhero.
like the house girl, so she's
That is
granola
true. That is
girl.
true. I think we have some like granola in the.
We do.
It's
I
in the
need to eat
fridge.
granola.
It's good. It's tasty. Best
Stovetop
batch
granola.
ever.
Harder to burn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Anything more about Wait, Don't Tell Me?
It was funny.
It was funny?
Mm-hmm.
This is literally all you have, isn't it? You're so bad at this.
Ooh.
I mean, I don't have.
Way to
specific
encourage
questions.
participation.
Yeah.
You should not put whiskey in your tea.
The whiskey hasn't even settled in yet. So, Max and I had a little date yesterday, I guess.
Yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, we went to the well, I think it's Craft Plus Design, or is it supposed to be
Craft
Craft
and
and
Design.
Design
Yeah, that's how you
thing
read it.
at the Main Street Station, which is the train station downtown in Richmond, and it's been converted into this event space, which is actually very beautiful.
It's cool. It's really, really cool.
I had never been inside the station itself. I had only been a couple of times inside just the foyer, the entryway.
So that front
Lobby.
part is the station. That is the historical building. The
Okay.
front part. The back part where that space is now is what they call the train shed.
Oh, okay.
It used to be where the loading platforms were originally. And when I was a kid, it was changed into sort of a small shopping mall with a food court.
Oh yeah.
You remember that?
I do.
My
I only
mom would
remember
take
the
me down
6th
there.
Street Marketplace.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was about the same time those two things were developed, and this one lasted like a year. It lasted no time whatsoever, and the other one held on for a while. But
Yeah.
in any event, yeah, we went to that. It was really cool. Lots of really neat artists and artisans and
Yeah.
craftspeople. We bought a metal bat.
We did. The vendor for that was this guy called Ingenuity, and he had a really cool spelling. I'm going to put links to all of this in the show. I have pictures of a couple of the things that we saw that we thought were really cool, and a couple of the things that we purchased, and I'll put links to them, and I'll put some stuff on our Instagram, and I'll put links in the show notes to these vendors because we think it's important to support artists.
And we talked to them and made sure it was cool to.
Yeah, we made sure we got consent to share their information.
Well, Chastain did. I didn't.
I did because I am apparently the outgoing one in this relationship. I was. But we got this really cute bat. His name is Barry. He identifies as male. And his name is Barry. He's made out of metal. Or, no, I guess he's made out of steel. Erik?
Steel is a metal.
Yeah. Well, I know, but I wanted to be specific. But he's made out of steel, and he's welded together, and he's really cool. And he's just adorable. And then we saw these really awesome stuffed animal heads that are mounted like taxidermy, real animal heads. And that's something that you see kind of cheaply done, and you can get them at Target and stuff. But these were beautiful, and there were dragons, and there was a tentacle, and I almost cried because I saw this tentacle. And that was by Zugu. And she also had these cute little stickers, and we got one of the sticker sheets with our purchase. But she's married to a graphic illustrator. Who does these really cool cubist sort of illustrations of well-known characters. And what did we get, Max? Which ones did we buy?
We got they were all postcard size. They're pretty small, but they're an Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, Frankenfurter in the lingerie sort of costume from that part of the movie of Rocky Horror Picture Show. And Willy Wonka, and it's like the first scene where he comes out and meets the kids outside of
and he still has the cane, I think.
The Gene Wilder one, yes.
Yeah, the Gene Wilder.
Very important.
Not
to
the
make the
monstrosity that is the Johnny Depp version.
Which I thought, when you were talking about that Ingenuity guy, I thought it was really funny that most of the craftspeople and artists and what have you were like super slick, looked so cool, and like had a look and were put together. Yeah. And this dude was like somebody's dad who just welds shit in his basement. And that was really funny to me. He was just a dude.
Well, the other guy who was just a dude was actually a Richmond local artist. This guy who did pottery. And he was super excited that I asked for his information and asked if I could take pictures and stuff and talk about him. But doesn't have a website or anything.
Has a Yahoo.com
address. But I'm gonna share that so that if you're interested in what you see. But Erik, I immediately thought of you because you and I both love the Boogie Monster podcast where they talk about cryptids. Yep. And I showed you a picture of the little cryptid series that this guy did of Sasquatch, and there's a
Loch Ness Monster,
and a couple of cool cryptid pictures.
Yep.
And
I only saw the one side of it, but it's got a whale on it. What was that one?
Yeah, I saw the whale one. I didn't know what that was. Actually, he said it was the Myths and Legends.
So that
might
maybe
just be like
it
Moby Dick or whatever.
Moby Dick or something like that.
It is a white whale.
But the other cool thing he did was he had these funky looking masks. And again, I'll put all this on the Instagram. Our Instagram is at Cult with a V, all one word. And he has these masks, and he says that what did he say? He took his...
He called them his seconds. So the ones that are not quite sale quality.
Right. So he has these masks that you can put on trees, and they look a little spooky and scary. They're kind of skeletal, and some of them do look like faces that belong on trees. And he takes his seconds, and he puts them on trees around Texas Beach, which is a beach around the James River here in Richmond area. So if you venture out during the summertime to go hang out at the James and get up on the rocks and stuff, look out in the woods. Maybe you'll see one of this guy's works. What's the name of his work? It's the Paul and Kate Studio. And it says his little tagline is ceramics with a life of their own. And they really do. It's all spooky stuff and kind of creepy. And it was really, really fun. We also saw this really awesome woodwork, and Max and Erik both are woodworkers. They both know how to turn wood, and it's sort of hobby stuff for both of them. And this guy takes huge, huge, huge pieces of wood with burls and things and like that in them, And essentially it looks like he takes full tree stumps, would you say?
That's where the burl is.
Yeah, a burl is a growth at the base of a tree. It's basically, it's like a cyst on a tree, basically. If there's something wrong, a tree will grow this burl to contain whatever, is irritating it, essentially. Erik, you're looking at me funny. Do I have this wrong?
No.
Yeah.
That's a great way to say it.
Yeah.
Because the grain structures will be usually kind of circular, very tight, and kind of varying.
Twisted. Yeah.
So if you think of anything that's like super knotty looking.
Naughty.
And they're really
not naughty.
dense.
Naughty.
The wood is generally really dense.
Very, very dense, yeah.
Yeah, well, he takes this stuff and he takes any of the holes and cracks and things and he fills them with resin and uses, inside the resin, he uses semi-precious gemstones. And it's beautiful to look at, and I'll post pictures of that. And that's Little River Woodworks. And he's also a Virginia artist. So supporting some local Virginia artists. And I know that not all of our listeners are in Virginia, but we are. So it was really awesome to see some of our local Virginia craftsmen and craftswomen out there. We also saw...
He was from Floyd County, the wettest county in the world.
Floyd County.
Oh, is he one in Bondurant Boy?
Well, he down at Bondurant Station.
We also saw an artist who takes materials that are found materials and uses things like the charms from belly dancer skirts, and one of the pieces had snake vertebrae that were being used, and the picture that she let me take was of her favorite piece, and that had a lot of objects that were very important to her in it, and she kind of calls all of her art vessels of the spirit, and her daughter is a burlesque dancer, and she really embodies the spirit of women and embraces feminism in her work. And I'll put a link to some information about her as well. And we got to speak with her for a long time. And she actually noticed my semicolon tattoo when I was speaking with her, just sort of quietly and making sure she was okay with me taking a picture. And she tapped my tattoo and she said, "Congratulations." And that's the first time anybody's really noticed my tattoo. Huh. Yeah, you were off talking to some friends we had run into.
Yeah.
And that's the first time that anybody has noticed my tattoo. And I'm kind of coming out of a difficult period for me. So I asked if I could hug her, of course, because consent is important. And she said yes, of course. And so we had a little hug. And that was really nice. So all of these will be in our Instagram.
Did you want to explain the tattoo?
Yeah, you probably should do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So a semicolon tattoo, the semicolon is punctuation that means continuation. And it is a symbol for people who have survived suicide or suicidal thoughts. And it is a sort of an inspirational thing for people who deal with depression and stuff like that. And these are some things that I've struggled with in my past and also currently because I have a painful disease called trigeminal neuralgia, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a later episode. Not going to talk about now. But yeah, so it was kind of a touching moment for me that just like randomly on this little cute date that Max and I were having that kind of came up. So yeah. So Hannah, what have you been up to this weekend?
Having a nice around the house weekend, doing some baking.
Ooh.
It's fall, so baking is happy. And I wanted the house to smell like apple cider, and it did, and that was great.
You made a delicious pie.
Thank you.
And your crust experiment turned out amazingly. I'm so excited. Thank you. Hannah made pie crusts all day yesterday.
It's its own project, separate from the pie making.
Yes. Yeah. And she made 3 pie crusts for me so that I can make pie things for my stuff for Thanksgiving. And
I've got family Thanksgiving, so I did some for that. There might have been an extra or 2 in there, so we did an apple pie for us to just enjoy this weekend.
Yeah, because we like pie.
Baking is good stress relief.
No, for you maybe.
I suck at baking.
I love to bake.
It's
high five for
very
sucking
stressful
at baking.
To me.
Me too. This is a podcast where we talk about love and relationships, sex and kink, and polyam issues, and whatever else comes up. While we talk about those things, we'll probably also touch on stuff like abuse and violence and mental health challenges. Those can be difficult topics, so keep that in mind moving ahead.
You guys want to talk about Dolly Parton?
Who doesn't love Dolly Parton?
I love Dolly.
Here's what I'm thinking. There isn't much that ties into our usual topics that has to do with Dolly. except that Dolly is kind of everywhere right now. She's got a book out. She's got a Netflix series. She's got an NBC special. She's there's a musical based on 9 to 5 that's showing now, I think. Exactly that. And so everybody's talking about Dolly Parton. And I thought that we could use that as like a jumping off point to talk about some of our stuff. How's that sound?
Great.
Love it.
Anybody want to talk about their history as Dolly Parton fans? Or?
I mean, I have a history. I have a full page of notes.
Oh, okay.
Purple notes.
Well, I grew up in a family that listened to, country music, pop radio, and, grew up with the movies like 9 to 5 and Rhinestone Cowboy and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, Rhinestone Cowboy was terrible.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic song, though. I'm kidding.
So, Dolly Parton's existence was just kind of part of my life growing up.
Same.
And big titty jokes being connected to Dolly Parton
Same, though.
were like third grade jokes.
The calculator thing where she goes to the doctor.
When you spell boobies on a calculator?
Yeah,
is that what
there was like a math joke where
I don't know this. Yeah.
I know that, but not with anything to do with Dolly Parton, though.
Like, I remember a third or fourth grade joke being along the lines of, what is Mountain Dew? Sweat from Dolly Parton's boobs. I didn't say it was a good joke. It was a third or fourth grade joke. Yeah, but, so that's it. Anybody else will talk about their, life with Dolly?
So I have a chronological recounting of my history with Dolly Parton. So anybody can go before me if you like.
Oh, and also we went to Dollywood when I was a kid.
We also went to Dollywood when I was a kid. I had a bad experience at Kenny Rogers Roasters.
I did not go to Dollywood as a kid, and I did not grow up with the movies, but I did listen to a lot of pop country radio, and so there was an awareness, if not like a childhood love.
I didn't, even less that. I didn't listen to country pop radio when I was younger because I was too much of a highbrow snob.
And you missed out.
I had nothing to do with country music when I was little because I played violin, not fiddle.
I guess it would be important to maintain that distinction for yourself. Yes.
Oh, well, not really, but at the time, yes, because I didn't want to be associated with my countrified cousins. However, was also still quite aware of Dolly Parton. Because she is ubiquitous and a ray of light.
And a ray of light.
But it's been interesting to me how the image of Dolly Parton has changed in the last few years and how she became this icon for different things and has like been elevated to some kind of saint status or something when, she's a lady from a holler in Tennessee.
Well, okay. So can I talk about a little bit about her being a little girl and me knowing all, like, my exposure to her as a little girl? Mm-hmm. So, y'all know I like blondes, right?
What?
Y'all know I'm kinky, right?
Indeed.
Y'all know I'm a sex worker, right?
Retired.
Retired. Y'all know I just generally like to be fancy and have lots of feathers and rhinestones and stuff around me, right?
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So, okay, just keep that in mind as I tell you some stuff that was...
Well, you just described Dolly Parton.
I did just describe Dolly Parton, but just hold on. So, Dolly Rebecca Parton was born January 19th, 1946, 2 years before my mama. And she was raised in the Pentecostal church. And she lived in a tiny one-room cabin in Greenbrier Valley of the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. Now, I wrote all this down so I could remember, but I read an autobiography of Dolly Parton called Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business in 1994 when I was 14. My mom and I read it. I read it after she did. And I did a book report on it. And I had to go back and get the little details because what I have to talk about here is kind of pertinent. When she was 13 years old, she met Johnny Cash and performed with Johnny Cash. She moved to Nashville right after she graduated high school. The song Coat of Many Colors was literally about her coat of many colors that she wore to school just over her underwear, and she didn't wear anything else. And I read that in her autobiography. And the other thing that I read in her autobiography that sort of stuck with me about just how very impoverished they were was the fact that they had no heat in the wintertime. And was that when one of her little brothers or sisters would wet the bed, they would tuck the covers in as tightly as they could just to keep the heat in, because it was so cold.
To back up and clarify something, it's a coat of many colors because it's a coat sewn from rags and patched and things. That's why it's a coat of many colors. Now,
when I was little and I heard the song, before I had read the autobiography, I got this very, very confused with Joseph's Technicolor.
Exactly, yeah.
Because I was also familiar with that musical and the story from the Bible. The Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Right.
Well, what part of the Bible is that?
The story of the prodigal son.
Is that the story of the prodigal son?
No.
Thank you, Hannah.
No, it's Joseph.
Thank you, Hannah.
I don't think that they described it in the Bible as the Technicolor.
Anyway, go ahead.
So,
second disclaimer, we're not experts.
Well, Hannah kind of is, so I was just...
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out where that was going.
So, anyway, I was just curious. Anyway, so when I was born in 1980 was the same year that 9 to 5 came out, the movie that she did with Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda.
And Dabney Coleman.
Which was a movie in which 3 female characters take control. And it's a very feminist movie. It's a very 1980s kind of power feminist movie, second wave feminist movie. And this movie has things like objectification.
And shoulder pads.
But in objectification, it has skirt chasing, heavy skirt chasing, which is kind of a weird fetish of mine, the secretary stuff. And it has actual bondage in it. And it has predicament bondage when Dolly Parton lassos Dabney Coleman. And then in 1982 was when the version of Best Little Whorehouse in Texas comes out with Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds, which is about her being a madam of a brothel, and Burt Reynolds is the sheriff, and they have an affair, and they have an arrangement that, they're not gonna, he's not going to arrest her and shut her down or anything. And there's this puritanical stuff going on, whatever. But that movie has a lot of boobies, and then she dresses fabulously throughout the whole film. And she does a greatest hits album later in the 80s, which is when I first heard songs from this movie, including I Will Always Love You.
Which is a much older song. It's not from
this movie, right, but it was used in the movie. But there were pictures of her in fabulous lingerie and also fabulous dresses from this movie on that album, and I totally masturbated to the cover of the album. Mind you, it was a record, not a CD.
So the picture was bigger? Is that what you're...
No, I'm just trying to give time period context.
Oh, okay.
Hand-holdable.
Right.
I'm just trying to say I was 7 or 6. Yeah.
It was big and fragile. And
but it was when I did see the movie, I was still young when I saw the movie 9 to 5. I was very young when I saw Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. I'm sure we rented it from a movie rental store. It was probably mid 80s. So I was young. I had already seen Flashdance. I already had a concept of sex work or stripping or whatever in my mind. And here were these movies where I was seeing big, busty blondes, big hair, glamour, sex work, and silk pillowcases, and just all of this kind of lifestyle that I didn't understand that I was really fetishizing, but that stuck with me. And now it's kind of a lifestyle that, in a way, we sort of have, in my world. And then I read her autobiography and learned, she came from fucking nothing, and she built this for herself. And Hannah and I were talking about how Dolly is this master marketer of herself.
Yeah. Yeah, she really knows what the Dolly Parton brand is.
Yeah.
And, for 30 years before we were talking about the word brand being associated with a human being, she's always known, what people wanted Dolly Parton to be.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's the podcast right now, Dolly Parton's America. And although obviously I knew it, it is disappointing to me to hear somebody that I like talk in sort of explicit terms about just selling themselves and selling their image, because you don't want to believe that people that we like are characters. But of course they are.
Well, did you know that, like, when she first started in the business and actually got into recording, they wanted her to be a pop star. They didn't want her to be a country star. They liked her songwriting, and they wanted to use that for other people, which they did. Right. But they wanted her to be a pop star, and it took her fighting and fighting and fighting to finally record a country song.
Well, that's how all country artists start. Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson came to Nashville as songwriters, not as...
And then she hit the charts as soon as she did.
Well, she was also a child singer. I mean, it wasn't like, you know, she was on TV as a child singing, so it wasn't, you know, that. You know, so when she came to Nashville at 18, the story goes that she met her husband the day that she came to Nashville, and they have been basically together since then for 60 years or whatever it is.
Right.
And, you know, he's never seen in public. There are very few actual photographs of him. People say that he doesn't exist. But apparently, according to Dolly, despite rumors, I keep talking about her like we're friends. You know, they've had a completely faithful marriage for that whole period of time, despite the fact that people, you know, rumor that she has had these long-term affairs with different people, including her personal assistant, Judy something or another. And, you know, she always insists that this isn't true, even though maybe in the autobiography that you read, but there have been a couple. She talks about having had a affair of the heart, seemingly an unconsummated affair with probably one of her band members. So what can we talk about as far as relationships go as it relates to Dolly Parton?
Well, can I give you my theory?
Yes.
No.
My theory is that Dolly Parton's relationship is strictly with her fans. That Dolly Parton has created herself and created this image and built herself up and made this character, and she can't stop playing the character. And her relationship is to serve her fans. That she has no opinions on politics, and she only has opinions on being authentic to herself, because her love and her gift to the world is to give the beauty of song and songwriting and authenticity to her fans. That is my theory.
So
Come on.
So I got a couple things from a couple articles that I read. Dolly describes her marriage as, quote, open and free, but she said in a 2014 interview, quote, yes, it's an open relationship, but not sexually, and I would kill him if I thought he was doing that, and he would shoot me too. At the end of the day, we love each other madly.
Well, that to me sounds like they can flirt with people and
well, she talks about that a lot. Yeah, she says that she's flirtatious and that she enjoys that, and he knows that that's all that is. But here's another thing from another article / interview that I wanted to read. Let's see, talking about Jennifer Aniston, her husband is a big fan of the former Friends star. Quote, my husband is crazy about her. See, I think he kind of fantasizes like a threesome with us. He can't even get it out to pee, much less get it up for 3.
Wow.
So that's Dolly
Hannah,
Parton
what do
talking
you
about
have
her
to
husband's
say?
Sexual prowess.
That's on brand, too.
It is. So I watched the first episode, the first hour of the Netflix show, Dolly Parton's Heartstrings. And she comes out and provides context for the song that the hour is focused on, which is Jolene for the first one, and describes it as expressing her personal feelings about her husband's flirtation with what she says was the red-headed hussy at the bank.
Yeah.
And I just found it so interesting because she has phrased that very differently depending on the context. Sometimes it's it was a joke between me and my husband. And it sounds like they have this sort of playful jealousy kind of around these things that may, obviously she says, I would shoot him with affection.
Yeah. The story that I'm familiar with is the kind of joking way that you're talking about, that he was visiting the bank too much because he thought this teller was cute.
Right. And so it was not, it sparks an idea for a story that is marketable. It's not a deeply held personal feeling. But, you know, in the context of the show, it was very much here I am and here's my story kind of thing.
And she's obviously a very creative person. And she does see ideas all around her. And she's been seeing ideas all around her in her story, in her personal world, and in the world around her all her life. I mean, since she was a little girl. Erik, do you have anything to say about Dolly Parton?
She was in the Beverly Hillbillies movie. and delightful.
Yeah, but what I was touching on earlier that I think you're kind of like verging on, Chas, if not fully there, is this like beatification of Dolly Parton as a saint, you know, for authenticity or for even, you know, she's become an icon for LGBTQ plus people.
Yeah.
Which I have no right or ability to speak about, so I won't. But she's just a person, and she's a 70-some-odd-year-old woman from small town South who refuses to say anything negative about, let's say Donald Trump, for example. And she's a conservative person, and although she is affirming, I've heard her in interviews be very affirming, like, she's just a woman and a marketing person who knows, like, where her money comes from.
Right, and she knows where her money comes from.
And I think this urge to raise somebody to saint status is dangerous.
I never said she was a saint. I said that she loves her audience. That's what I said. Okay. I didn't say that her audience had to do anything for her. For her, I said that she is married to her audience. That's what I said.
Wow, that was defensive.
It wasn't defensive. I was just making sure that I was being clear. No, I was making sure that I was being very clear that I'm not speaking for the audience or the public, that I am saying that my theory is that Dolly Parton isn't married to her husband, that Dolly Parton isn't having affairs of the heart with other people, that deep down Dolly Parton created herself from scratch, and she is married to this person she has created and to the audience that adores her. And it doesn't matter who that audience is or what they represent, and the politics don't matter. What matters is that she has created a character, and that is who she is, and that is the thing she loves. She loves being Dolly Parton and the adoration that she gets when she walks out on that stage.
Oh, and I think key to that is that Dolly Parton as a character is really easy to project our own struggles and aspirations onto. And certainly that's by choice and that's by design. She's really, really good at what she does.
Right.
And leaves that space open for interpretation so that we can all identify with her. And so to see this sort of, I feel like that like uptick, that surge of folks identifying with her and reinterpreting things to fit their personal experience is exactly what great music is supposed to do for everybody.
Right.
To create a song that was perfectly, relatable in its context and then can be reinterpreted to have, a completely different group of people with a completely different perspective take ownership of it and say, we found the secret. It was really meant for us all along.
Right.
That's awesome. That's amazing talent as an artist to create something that is universally endearing, universally understandable.
Didn't she write Dumb Blonde?
I'm not familiar with that.
Hannah, will you research that? Sure. So she goes on talk shows and she talks about her wig collection and her nails. And she talks about how people ask her how she can play her guitar with her long nails. And she shows people how she plays the guitar and the mandolin and all the other instruments that she can play. And she doesn't usually talk about her business. She usually doesn't talk about her empire. She usually doesn't talk about how, she built Dollywood. She usually doesn't talk about the fact that when Dollywood burned down and the town around Dollywood burned down, how she helped the families.
There was just fire, like it didn't.
Well, okay, so there was fire, but she helped the families around there.
Yeah.
She doesn't talk about that stuff. The media does, but she doesn't
Well, she talks about the fact that she purchased Dollywood and Well, it was, whatever the previous theme park was, Gold Rush Junction, something like that.
Yeah.
And turned it into Dollywood and wanted to build up and improve to bring jobs to the area that she was from. She talks about that kind of stuff. She talks about her philanthropy. Eric's got something.
Yeah, A Dumb Blonde was written by Curly Putnam.
But who performed it?
Well, she did.
Okay. So, but she goes on shows, though, and she does that laugh, that thing where she goes, you know what I'm talking about, that high-pitched squeal, the Dolly laugh. And just that, like, that just endearing, like you see it, and, you know, 50% of the audience hates her for it, and 50% of the audience gets a boner, whether they're male or female. You know what I'm talking about?
A she boner?
It doesn't matter whatever boner. That thing that makes you automatically write her off as, oh, she's just a dumb blonde. That thing that makes you go like, oh, she's not smart. But she is. She's very smart. She's very intelligent. She's masterminded and crafted all this stuff. And when she doesn't know how to do it, she's put people around her who know how to protect her private life, how to protect, like how to keep all this stuff secret and how to market her. Right? Mm-hmm. Would you agree with this? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think the fact that we don't know specific Dolly political views is not just a Dolly thing. I think this is, people have said, you know what, the times are bad. Like, make sure you don't have an opinion. And I think that's not just a her thing.
No, it's not.
And I think that, like, her rebranding and coming back and performing with rappers and fresh people is, you know, people, smart publicists going like, you know what would be a good idea? This.
What you laughing at, Eric?
Just hearing fresh people made me think of some form of political correctness term.
Rappers and fresh people.
Did I say something wrong?
No. You said something that in my head was really funny.
If the like Teeny Bopper magazine Fresh combined, like there was a corporate takeover over People magazine,
you
it
know,
would be
kids
fresh
in
people.
high school, they're no longer freshmen.
Yeah.
They're
fresh
people.
persons.
Fresh persons.
Oh, okay. That went nowhere.
I don't know. I was just
That's what I'm
rambling.
saying. None of it was really worth mentioning. It was just something that made me laugh in my head.
I mean, at night, she's a 70-year-old woman who's had a lot of work done, and she takes her makeup off and her wigs off just like everybody else.
Yeah, but the boobs stay.
They
Maybe.
do.
I don't
they
think
do.
she takes them off.
They do. They stay. And they go to the side.
Cool.
Mine go to the side. You don't complain.
Yeah, no, but it was the gesture. What? This is slipping.
Like my boobs.
Yeah, that was your Dolly Parton joke. Dolly Parton makes boob joke. Never mind. Fuck it. This is going terribly.
So, Hannah, you've been watching lots of media currently.
Okay.
This is another late night talk show setup. So I hear you've been consuming media.
So much media, you guys.
So, fun fact, Dolly Parton is Miley Cyrus's godmother.
True. Which, like, I remember, this is nothing. I mean, I remember Billy Ray Cyrus as being, like, what, a one-year, one-hit wonder? So it's weird to me, like, all these connections that Billy Ray Cyrus has to, like, shit that's still current in country music.
So, Dolly Parton was on the Hannah Montana show and played Hannah Montana's Aunt Dolly.
Right.
And then was in the Hannah Montana movie as Aunt Dolly.
Right.
And then she came on, and she was in the end of the Hillbillies movie, like you said. And she was delightful, as you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she basically got her big-time start on the Porter Wagner show. And, you know, that's what, everybody knows this. It's part of the whole thing. That's where I Will Always Love You comes from her leaving the Porter Wagner show. But Porter Wagner, just like all of those guys who had a big country multimedia empire, just like, you know, back to like Tex Williams all the way up through Buck Owens and Porter Wagner and all, like all those guys were just hard drinking, hard living sons of bitches. Like they were just bad dudes.
Didn't she have trouble with him?
Well, that's where I'm getting to. Like,
okay.
So it was clearly an abusive relationship that they had. If you watch any old clip of that show, he is just nasty to her because he was being eclipsed by her and he was a old son of a bitch. So she had this public, seemingly abusive, allegedly for legal purposes, abusive relationship with Porter Wagner.
Yeah.
Not a romantic relationship, not a sexual relationship by her reporting. So that's what we believe. She left that relationship, found her way out of that relationship, and found a way to recover. And she talks about forgiveness all the time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the role of forgiveness in relationships.
Okay.
But that's what a relationship is, right? It's a constant process of forgiveness and learning to let go of things.
Well, first, let's talk about forgiveness versus letting go, because I think these are two separate things.
Okay, that's fair.
I think forgiveness is the outward telling the person, I think it's freeing the person of the responsibility for doing anything about the hurt. And letting go is freeing yourself of the responsibility of doing anything about the hurt.
On which side of that do you mean?
So say, for example, Erik, you call me a bitch. I say, I forgive you. I understand that that was a slip up, and I know that you didn't mean it, that you don't really think I'm a bitch. At that point, I have freed you of the responsibility to further apologize and follow up with me on it and do any more work. Internally, I probably still have some hurt feelings and things like that, but those are no longer your responsibility to do anything about. So I have forgiven you, but I have not let go of the hurt feelings that I have. Those are two separate things.
I understand that. The way you described it earlier.
I think I said the same thing.
Just hang on.
Okay.
Hang on. Now I will describe how I interpreted what you said.
Okay.
The forgiveness part sounded like it came from you. The letting go in this scenario sounded like it came from me.
Oh, no, for both things come from me.
Right. Now, flip that around. How does that work on the other side of it?
On the other side of it, has nothing to do with me.
Okay. I didn't lead that very well. Either way, forgiveness and letting go, yes, two separate things, and they're somewhat directional in the sense that they're not mutually exclusive. One can exist without the other, but it's also
right.
Both sides of the parties at play can or do not have to do either.
Right. So I think with big things, forgiveness is the thing that allows the other side to process whatever trauma and guilt that they have about it separately from having to comfort the person who is feeling bad from having something done to them or having some feelings caused in them. And I think that letting go is processing the trauma inside yourself and dealing with it on your own.
Now, bringing it back to Dolly Parton, how much do you think was vital to her success? More forgiveness or more letting go?
Absolutely letting go. Forgiveness allows professional relationships to be maintained. Letting go allows her to move on and maintain those professional relationships. If she wasn't able to say, you know what, I'm a professional, I'm going to keep going, then she would not be able to fake forgiveness and give it to other people so she could keep moving.
Okay, fair.
That's my opinion.
I was thinking that there's some element of that could be that you maybe forgive but not let go, and it's the remembrance of that past that leads towards building your success for the future.
Mm.
Yeah, we've gotten into wild speculation.
Part of what I'm thinking, even as we discuss, obviously, yes, this is a team. Dolly Parton is a team of people with, responsibilities and experience that multiply her capabilities. But as an individual, that's got to be at the heart of who we perceive her to be. As somebody who's all things to all people, is that, she's been forced into this duality. She has to move on because from the very start, what she was doing was being a radically feminine performer.
Yes.
In a man's world,
yes.
A man's industry. And the skill set that she needed had to transform so many times to stay as relevant and as beloved as she's been over such a long period of time. I just think it's remarkable. But you're exactly right. You have to transform yourself.
Which requires flexibility of thinking and malleability of spirit. And both of those things are not only a skill set, but being young and poor, like being poor like that requires a kind of
improvisation.
Yeah, kind of an improvisation, kind of a like, you know what, I'm just going to make it through the day kind of stuff. Without that, or with that rather, you kind of learn to survive. So all she's doing is she's continuing to survive. There comes a point in her success where she's no longer surviving, she's thriving. And that's where it comes from. But Max, I want to get back to what you initially asked, which is about forgiveness. Because do you want us to speculate about Dolly Parton, or do you want us to actually talk about relationships? Because I think you want us to actually talk about relationships.
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to sit here and speculate about Dolly Parton because we don't know her, but we know ourselves. So in my relationships, I easily forgive. I do not easily let go. And forgiveness does not mean that it won't come up again. Because if there are patterns that I see, unfortunately, if the pattern and the event that is upsetting to me keeps happening, I do have to point it out, and it prolongs my inability to let something go. And that's a struggle on my end, and it makes it hard for the partners that I have.
Pointing out patterns is a valid thing, I think. But I think we also have to accept that when we see patterns of behavior in our partners, that's probably not just a pattern of behavior. That's part of their personality. That's who they are.
Right.
I fully do not support in any way, kind of quotey fingers on this, bringing up old shit.
Yeah.
Bringing up old shit is only damaging, and it doesn't help anybody, and it's something that a lot of us do in relationships.
Yeah.
But all of us should strive not to do.
Yeah.
In relationships.
And I think it's hard because I think we were all raised with this sort of competitive scorekeeping kind of thing. Maybe just
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're not competitive at all.
No.
If you're enjoying the Pod Pod Cvlt Cast, check out our podcast show notes at www.podpodcvltcast.com, or keep up with us on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook at Pod Pod Cvlt Cast, and Instagram at Cult with a V. Love us? Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, or help us continue to make this podcast possible by becoming a patron. Head over to patreon.com/PodPodCultCast. Remember, that's Cult with a V. Our patrons get access to exclusive content, cool swag, and our exclusive Patreon series, the Cult Cast Media Club podcast.
I pose a question for y'all.
Okay.
How much of her sustained popularity, relevance, what have you, is due to the position of a built from nothing person who is also at the same time unyieldingly positive? And so through co-option through different demographics of popular culture, it has renewed her life as a public figure. Be it from women first, then how did you phrase it in the jumping off point for relationships and queer issues and whatnot, you said? Basically, she's the super positive underdog. Who doesn't love that?
Yeah.
Well, time's up.
I lied. I cut us off early. I'm a liar.
Well, right. Hannah said before that she exists, and most people who, like, I think this is what you were saying, exist kind of as a cipher that we can project ourselves onto.
Right.
And
Exactly. And it doesn't matter from whence you came.
And right now, a bunch of queer kids are super excited to identify with this national treasure, you know, this piece of like history and family affection is like, oh wait, but she was on our side the whole time. And I don't know if that's really true, but I also don't know that it matters so much if it's strictly true.
No, it's
because
still
people are taking inspiration from something.
Right, it's the torch you're carrying.
And, you know, mass or not, right? Like, whether it matters in a mass or not, like, as an individual, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like, if you're the lonesome kid who is lonesome because you're different than everybody around you in any kind of way, whether it's because of your orientation or your identity, or that you have funny looking teeth or big ears or whatever it is, like, it doesn't matter if that person is really that thing. Like, as long as you hear that song and go like, oh yeah, that makes me feel better.
So growing up, country music was the only radio I was allowed to listen to. It was worship music or it was country music because that was supposed to be wholesome and good for the family. And so by the time I got into high school, I was so sick of country radio that I was, a snob about it and was like, oh, this is stupid music. Now I'm a pianist and I like real music. And I had some friends who were from New Jersey who would come down and that's all they wanted to listen to was country music. And we had like 5 different stations at any given time. And I was like so baffled because these were people I admired and people I thought were cool. And I'm like, but country music is stupid and hillbilly and I'm not that. And their response was just like, why are you so uptight? This is music that everybody can relate to. Like so much of what you hear in pop music is aspirational. It's about being the one in power. It's about being the one who has money. And with country music, it's okay to just be whoever you are and to take pride in that. And those were the things they loved about it, which is obvious, but it was not obvious to me as a kid who wanted to distance myself from everything that felt low class.
I'll second that. I was exactly the same.
Yeah. And I think that having people who are self-possessed and elegant and genuinely, delightful say, hey, it's okay to be exactly who you are. And, it's also okay to reinvent yourself. Their authenticity. It keeps coming back to authenticity.
Fucking authenticity.
And to hear Dolly Parton say how God made you is exactly how you're supposed to be means a lot of things to a lot of different people. But I think we get something out of that. We accept whatever is meaningful and relevant to us.
So does anybody think that's extended her public life?
I do.
For sure. The fact that she's able to lean into the joke. Like, Max, you listened to the Jolene episode, right? From the WNYC's podcast?
Yeah.
And they play a little clip of her singing live, substituting drag queen for Jolene in the lyrics. And it's like, that doesn't come from her. That was not the heart of this song. But she can read the crowd and read the cultural moment and do something that people get a lot out of. She's just not that hung up on her, I don't know. Is it okay to say that she is always on brand, but also not hung up on the details?
It's preserving your brand through, trashing your brand, in that sense, anyway. Which is a good thing. That's why so much comedy is based on self-deprecation.
Yeah.
And that all this business savvy and also her brand and her presentation and stuff is about growing up desperately poor, right? Like most people who grow up, not most, many people who grow up desperately poor have this drive to never want again and to never feel unsafe again.
Hi.
Like Chastain, and my grandparents who were kids of the Depression, having money squirreled away somewhere was the most important thing. My dad grew up desperately poor and squirreled cash away for the next disaster.
Yeah.
And so you get this drive where you'll still talk about your humble beginnings and you'll still see yourself as trash, right?
Yeah.
But you have this drive to feel secure. It's about security, right?
Yeah.
I had to wonder, listening to those different interpretations of the origins
of
Jolene specifically, and listening to her in her own words, have 2 very different takes on it. How does it feel to be that partner who just gets constantly called out and recast into different roles over years and years of just a flirtation? Does it matter? Is it just part of the...
Is that bringing up old shit?
Is that bringing up old shit? Is that letting it go?
I think it's
being able to laugh at it.
I think it's
just a story.
I think it's just a story. I think that I think that probably it's authentic that she met a little girl and liked the name, and then the rest of it's just a story that's made up. I think that it's probably true that she and her husband are fine with flirting with other people, so long as it doesn't go further than that. Even if it's a Like, even if it gets to the letter writing phase or the email writing phase.
So us as very evolved, very enlightened, non-monogamous people.
Watch your mouth. What'd you call me?
How do we have a problem with calling that an open marriage?
No, I don't, because I mean, there are lots of long distance relationships that never hit the sexual level, and there are lots of ways that you can be sexual that don't include people touching other people, and there are lots of valid
distance fucking.
Well, but there are lots of valid asexual relationships or platonic relationships that are romantic. I mean, Max, my marriage with you is a valid marriage, right? We don't have sex.
Yeah.
Like, would you call this an affair of the heart?
I mean, I obviously wouldn't use those words, but
but you love me.
I do, yeah, and I do like the word affair. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Hannah, save me.
I think that all of that is true, and I also think that if you are in a relationship that you decide will be open, except for the one thing that matters and counts as cheating to you, that's got a little bit of a different light for me. Like, yes, romance without sex is real and valid, and absolutely, you get to define your relationship. But if what you're really doing is saying, we're open, except not in all of the ways that that are actually important to me, I don't know. Is that really allowing somebody to have other relationships?
But if it's consensual on both sides, it's none of our business.
Oh, sure. It's none of my business to tell you what you should do. But as far as definitionally, are you having a relationship with someone else if you're withholding all the things that count to you as a relationship?
Aren't definitions weighted by the individual context anyway? Though?
Exactly. I mean, like Erik and I have a one penis policy, but it's my one penis policy.
No, actually, it's mine.
You got that one penis, girl.
But it's not a one penis policy that you enforced upon me. I choose it for myself, and you benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. So ultimately, yes, anybody can call anything they want to call it, right? She can define that as an open marriage. But I would agree that, like, if we're making a taxonomy of open relationships, of non-monogamous relationships, we would not include that in the official.
It would be the shallowest end of that pool.
Then you would say that is a marriage in which they are perfectly okay flirting with other people.
Right. It's a good and trusting relationship where they know that is not going to be the end of their relationship.
However, we don't know how they define flirting, and if that flirting includes sexting,
right,
sexual emails or letters.
That's the thing. Like, you often see, say on Whisper, for example, someone will say, like, I had this fight with my boyfriend. I sent my ex, like, clothes selfies. Is that cheating? Like, there are so many things that people say, like, is that cheating? And the answer is, like, well, if you define it that way, then it is,
yeah, if you did it out of spite, then most likely.
Right.
I'm trying to find, I had one other screenshot because there was one thing she said. Let me find that. Keep vamping. Keep talking.
Vamping.
Hannah's the best at vamping.
Are you?
Vampiring.
Back to the kale chips. The name of the flavor is Vampire Killer because they have garlic.
So this is from a article and an interview, mostly an interview, having to do with rumors of affairs throughout the years. And Dolly Parton says, Carl never cared about that. Lord, they had me sleeping with everybody. I'd never have gotten anything done. And then she says, and the ones I did sleep with, they don't know about. That was the one place that I could find something along those lines. But it's definitely a joke, right?
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely a joke. And I think, like, who cares, right? Like, the sex lives of celebrities, like, who the fuck cares? My sex life.
Many people.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing that people, like, get uptight about or care about or whatever.
Politicians,
for example,
who cares?
This is a very old country music thing. Her record label didn't want her to get married, or at least appear to be married. This is true of, like, every woman artist through time, or every, like, male
in K-pop
team pop star.
K-pop today, they're not even allowed to appear to be dating anybody
because they're supposed to be attainable. They're supposed to be available, right?
And also kind of pure. It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
And kind of in a fan relationship.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Exactly that. Married to their fans.
And I
right?
think that Dolly Parton's married to her fans. Back to that. So anyway, go on.
I don't know. I was
The
running
Netflix series, of course, the first one focuses pretty much entirely on cheating. And it's one of those things that, like, as I was watching it, this is really on brand, but it's also really modern, you know? Like, she's always holding that balance of, like, putting out a product that is in the moment and relatable, and also is Dolly Parton. I'm not going to spoil it for y'all because I know you're just dying to go and watch Dolly Parton's Heartstrings.
Like at the end.
But I am going to tell you the crux of the story, so sorry.
Skip ahead 30 seconds.
So the person who is involved in the affair with a married man is called upon to explain herself and how she can do this to somebody. And she says, well, he's married. I'm not cheating on anybody. And that is allegedly her feminist, no one can tell me what to do stance. Like, that is her doing her own thing. And then she kind of gets, not really a comeuppance, but like a change of heart. And months later says, oh, wait, I was cheating on womanhood. Like, I was cheating on my sister. That's what I did wrong. I devalued my fellow woman by having this affair with her husband. And I just thought, how strange, how interesting is that, to have those two sentiments, like, put, like, just minutes apart.
It was that I call bullshit.
Right. Like that,
I was cheating on her as a woman.
Doesn't that put, like, women on a different plane, put
Yeah.
women in a different
We're all
team?
human fucking beings. No.
And so there was a great, emphasis on communicating with your partner and setting clear boundaries and standing up for yourself and taking responsibility. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I do think that there was that same from many films past, which I'm sure you can think of.
The sisterhood of the traveling
Yes.
pants.
Yes, sisterhood
that
ultimately
movie is?
wins out.
Huh?
Anyway, sorry. I said, is that what that movie? I don't know what
it
that
was
movie
about a pair
is.
of jeans.
But this
No.
is a common, again, real life sentiment that people have. Like, to do that is
How do you
to let
betray
down-
your sisterhood?
Right.
Yeah.
That we're all in this together.
No.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like us against them kind of
Right.
thing.
And it was, if you would do that to her, would you do that to me? I'm your best friend.
I mean,
Mm.
I have heard many a lesbian
Mm-hmm.
disown women for sleeping with a man or for coming out as bisexual.
They betrayed.
Because they've betrayed their lesbian sisters. Like, all of it is bullshit. There is no secret vagina club that we're in. Like, no.
Oh, well, what am I even doing here then?
He's just trying to get the
He made
passphrase
himself
to
a
the vagina
membership
club.
card and everything.
Look,
He's just waiting to get it stamped.
Eric, you were in the secret vagina club for far different reasons.
You just said it didn't exist.
You were in my secret vagina club. This is now when Max says
My secret
gross.
vagina. Trademark.
I'm going to make stickers.
TM. Nobody can take that.
Available on Patreon at patreon.com/Pod Pod Cvlt Cast. And we would like to thank our newest patron, our cult initiate, Lauren. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
I have to search to see if secret vagina club is.
You're Googling
It's
the
like-
secret vagina club?
It's like the Babysitters
It would be a
Club.
secret if it was on Google.
Sometimes
If it was
people
on
are
the
stupid.
computer.
And it should actually be the secret vulva club because the vagina.
It's the whole jank.
You're the whole jank.
I kind of am janky. But this is an issue. I don't want to restart shit again because we got to wrap this up. But like this is a thing that we talk about a lot and that we come up against. Like, who's cheating? What is the nature of cheating? Is it okay to have a relationship with someone?
If you have to
who
ask
is
somebody
stepping
else if you're
You'll
cheating
never know.
who is not your partner, then you need to talk to your partner.
Wait, run that by me again?
If you have to ask somebody else outside of your relationship if you are cheating, go talk to your partner.
Well, yeah. I mean, the answer to every question is to talk to your partner. But
you're probably cheating if you have to ask somebody else.
But we have talked about, Chastity and you and I had at least one that I can think of off the top of my head, relationship with someone who was not being honest with their other partner. And,
yes.
So
and the sex was so good.
We have talked about like who's responsible in those.
Yeah. And I didn't feel responsible for that. And we used to feel responsible. We used to have that, like, if they're not telling people,
right?
We aren't going to be like home wreckers, kind of.
Right.
We used to have that, and then at one point we sort of just said, you know what? It's not our responsibility, because I don't feel like it is my responsibility to care for somebody else's relationship, and I don't know the full story in somebody else's relationship.
That's where I've landed, is that people do many things for many different reasons,
right? And
their reasons are their own reasons. But it is perfectly valid to make that a moral choice and say that is not does not align with your personal morals. And it is also valid to say it's just too much of a pain in the ass.
It is.
Right.
And
if you don't want the drama, that's also valid.
Also, and I think it is also okay to say, why are you making this decision? If you feel like you need to know, and it is perfectly okay for the other person to not consent to answer. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a safety issue. Sometimes it's like the marriage just isn't working and I'm in the process of ending it. And sometimes it's like I needed something else. I'm not going to end that relationship. I also don't want to harm that relationship. It's none of your fucking business. Now just suck my dick.
Yeah, I think I'm at the point in my life. I mean, I'm at the point in my life right now where I wouldn't start another relationship because I don't have the time and resources for it. Mm. But I think I'm at the time in my life where I would make the decision not to enter into that, partly out of a sense of morality. Like it would just feel bad, but mostly because it's a fucking pain in the ass, and it's not really any fun for anybody.
Right now, I have 3 important relationships in my life. I have my relationship with my dog, I have my relationship with Erik, and I have my relationship with Max. And then also Hannah's around too, but that's not romantic. That's mostly a baking relationship.
I mean, if you're counting your relationship with Oliver, then you're counting...
Yeah, please don't put me in competition with Oliver. Let's just leave that where it lies.
I kind of do want to put you in competition with Oliver because it's funny to watch.
Non-relationship relationships. And you didn't mention our son.
Ooh.
He hasn't called me, so...
In any event, so as long as we're talking about other than child relationships, go on.
So I'm at the point in my life where, honestly, other than my 2 important relationships, I'm gesturing to the menfolk in the room, not the dog, not the metamor, but those relationships. I think the important relationship I'm trying to get into right now is a relationship with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Are you self-partnered?
Look how much that tickled you.
Honestly, I really like that concept, and I think the way that it's being treated in the media is kind of mocking. And I don't enjoy that, because I think having a relationship with yourself is very important. And I think the ability to do things with yourself is a confidence booster. And I think that there are so many people who are codependent in the world and not able to spend time with themselves, where they're not wondering. I don't know. I just see a lot of people who aren't able to spend time with themselves in the world.
And before you think that I'm mocking, I'm actually really grateful to be surrounded by only polyamory content right now, because the context in which I'm seeing that being shared is, this is solo poly. How cool is that?
Yeah.
So, positive vibes.
I've seen a lot of it being mocked in just the normal monogamy media.
Yeah.
Monogamy media.
So, in other news, my search for a secret vagina club yielded one result that was entertaining.
Are there dinosaurs?
No. Eddie Brock's secret butt vagina club.
I will link this in the show notes.
Nah, it's not worth it.
I think it is.
Apparently it has something to do with Spider-Man.
Ooh.
I have a question and a request.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is a search request, and the first one of you to find this for me.
Max, you better get ready.
It's a scavenger. It's a phone scavenger hunt, and this is what we will end with today, because I think we've been here way too long. 4% battery. Then you better hurry the fuck up. All right, are you ready for this?
Yep.
Da-na-na. Okay.
4%.
The first one to find me, it's going to be Hannah. The first one to find me, Secret Dinosaur Club.
Oh.
Get something special. And I'm not going to tell you what that is until the next episode. So you're just going to have to like, subscribe, and give us a rate and review on either Apple Podcast or Stitcher Podcast. We are also now available on Pandora, which is awesome. And we can also be found on Spotify, anywhere that your podcatcher takes you or what you use. So check those out. What you got for me, everybody? Secret Dinosaur Cult?
Secret Dinosaur Cult.
Secret Dinosaur Cult. Ooh, is it cult with a V?
It is not cult with a V.
Then it is an inferior cult.
In this divinely Danish hometown special of Secret Dinosaur Cult. It's a podcast! Alright, check out Secret Dinosaur Cult for reasons we're not sure of yet.
Okay, I'll link it in the
might
show
be
notes.
racist. Let's not endorse
Okay,
it,
all
so-
right.
Oh, we don't endorse it, but we will link it in just the terms and phrases part of the,
5-star
There's
dinosaur
t-shirts.
reviews.
there's t-shirts. Okay.
That'll be the best fossil.
All right, so don't buy their merch, but do absolutely support us on Patreon. And that link has already been given out in the show. So, oh,
There's a t-shirt that says "Good Night, White Pride."
oh, no, thank you.
No, good night
That's-
is in
that's-
like it's getting rid of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's good then. I thought it was like tucking it in gently so it could wake up the next day
Sorry.
and
No,
get back to
like
work.
Getting
actually, it
cult
looks like a
content. Just
velociraptor
ignore
eating
that.
a person.
Is it going?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
You've just heard the Pod Pod Cvlt Cast with your hosts Max Chastain, Hannah, and Erik. Our theme song is Spencer Blues by Lobo Loco. Our break music is by Gabarino on YouTube. We have a listener survey going on right now, and we would love your feedback. If you could take 10 minutes to visit www.podpodccultcast.com/survey2019, we would love to hear from you. Give us your feedback on our episode length, how often we release, and the content that we provide. We want to make the best podcast for ourselves and for you. Thank you so much for listening.